Hello, so today we're going to talk about how to create a chart in Excel. So this chart will allow you to make comparisons between two categorical variables. Notice in a chart, or even in a pivot table for that matter, you don't want to use variables that are, say, on an interval level data or continuous. And by that I mean like cholesterol or age or IQ or shoe size, something that has not been categorized. Um, I'm going to use age groups that have been categorized, and I'm going to compare that with a variable called good at math, which was just simply a variable, a question that was asked of numerous students. Um, and it was a Likert scale question asking them how good at math they felt they were, or their response, whether they were agreed or strongly agreed or disagreed that they were good at math. So the first thing you need to do is highlight the variables of interest, okay? So I've got age and I've got good at math. Now notice I've highlighted all the variables between as well, and that's because Excel will not allow you to produce a pivot table, and for that matter a chart, after only highlighting only one variable. Or I'm sorry, two variables that are separated by other columns. So you have to actually highlight all of the columns in between. It's annoying, it's a subtle point, and when you create the pivot table, all you have to do is deselect the variables that are not of interest anymore. So with that said, I've highlighted age, and then a bunch of other categories that are variables that I'm not interested in, and then good at math. And then the next thing I need to do is go to data and click on pivot table. And it's now created a pivot table template. It's by default selected a couple of variables that I'm not really interested in. Good at math I actually am interested in, so I'm going to keep good at math and as my column. So I have good at math running along the column here. And I want here age groups. So let me find my age right here, and I drop it down to the rows. And the last thing I'm going to do is drop down one of those variables. I'm going to put age into the values box. So I have age in rows, age on my rows, columns will be good at math, and then for the values box you can drop down either good at math or age, it doesn't matter which, and it produces a table, a pivot table with absolute frequencies. The next thing I want to do is actually clean this table up a little bit. So I'm going to remove some of these unnecessary row labels, incorrectly filled out, blank, and blank. And the way I do that is just there's a little drop down menu next to row labels. You just click on that. And next to the column label as well, you want to remove the blank, incorrectly filled out, and blank. And what that does is essentially limits your data to people who filled it out correctly and or filled it out at all for that matter. Sometimes they just didn't skip it, they skipped it and it was just missing data. So we here have now analyzable data. Again, this is still absolute frequencies. These are just raw numbers. 4 people in the 18 to 25 group agreed that they were good at math, right? So, but if we want to make comparisons between these age groups and this agreement of good at math, absolute frequencies are not best. The best thing to do is actually relative frequencies. So if I want to look at comparisons of people who say they're good at math, and I want to look at that percentage relative to other age groups, what I need to do is change this count to a row percent. So by doing that, I'm going to go over here and click on the little I. This little box pulls up. I'm going to click on Options, and it says Show Data As. Right now it says Show Data as Normal. I'm going to click on that. I'm actually going to change that to row percent. So what this has done by clicking OK is now I have all those counts, those absolute numbers, absolute frequencies are now changed to relative frequencies. So I know now 16.67% of the individuals in the 18 to 25 category of row agree that they're good at math. Whereas in the age group 26 to 32, 50% agree that they're good at math. So that's a big difference right there, and you can make the comparisons within the table itself. Let's say you don't want to make it within the table, you want to make it within a chart. This is why we're here. So what you do is you highlight the data within the table plus the labels. Okay. Notice I did not highlight the grand total marginal or the grand total marginal column. I didn't highlight either one of those, only the data within the table plus the respective categories labels. Okay. Once I've done that, the last thing you need to do is just simply click on Charts, and then here I'm going to click on my chart, and I'm going to do Clustered Column, and it creates this awesome chart for me. And here, within every category of agreement, you can make comparisons across age categories. Here I have 18 to 25-year-olds. Of those 18 to 25, about 18% or 17% agree that they're good at math, whereas 50% of the 26 to 32-year-olds agree that they're good at math, and about 43% of those 33 to 39 agree that they're good at math. So that is a chart done in Excel in Mac world, and that will allow you to make comparisons between age groups and whether they agree good at math or not, and that's essentially how to do it in the Mac world. Unfortunately, it's a little bit different in the PC world. Okay, it starts out the same. You highlight the same variables. Here's the same variables I'm interested in. I've got age, sex, GPA, math, expectation, and good at math. So again, I can't highlight just 2 columns that I'm interested in. I have to highlight all the variables. And then in the PC world, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Insert. And then on the Insert tab, there's a Pivot Table button. I'm going to click on the Pivot Table. And just say OK here. This is just going to say where the data are located and where you're going to create your table. So this is a little bit different than the Mac world in the sense that I have, well, the Pivot Table Builder looks a little bit different. But it's the same idea, more or less. However, in the Mac world, to get this figure here, I put rows as age and column was good at math. Okay, and I did row %. But in order to get that same figure in the same exact figure in the PC world, I actually have to do it a little bit different. So let's drag the good at math down to row labels and age to columns. Okay, so this is a little bit different. Again, I've switched now my columns and my rows, and I don't know why it's different, but the table will look different. As a result, the chart will look the same, and that doesn't make any sense to me either, but that's the way it is. So on the row labels here, again, I'm going to clean it up by dropping down, just drop down menu. I'm going to drop down, get rid of blank, incorrectly filled, and blank. And then again on the column labels, do the same by dropping down, drop down menu, blank, incorrectly filled, and blank. So now I have, it's all the same data, it's just displayed a little bit differently. Here my rows are actually agree, disagree, strongly agree, and my columns are the age groups. Okay, but it's the same data. Again, it's just flipped, where I have rows as the Likert scale and columns are my age. And I have it absolute frequency just like I did with in the Mac world. But here I'm actually going to change that, and the way I change it here is the same idea. You got a little drop down menu here. Click on that, and it says Value Field Settings. And right now, it by default is on Count. I'm going to change Show Values As, and it says No Calculation. I'm going to change that to a column total, % of column total. Okay, this over here was a row total. Now I'm going to make it a column total. Press OK. And if you notice, it is the same data, it's just flipped. 16.67, 41.67, 41.67, which is the same data as over here in the Mac world, 16.67, 41.67, 41.67. And it has now created the same exact data, it's just the rows and the columns are flipped. And now if I highlight this data and only the labels, again, only the internal relative frequencies and the respective category labels. And then I need to go to, again, Insert, and go to Column, 2D Column, and it creates a chart that is exactly the same as the Mac world, except that here the pivot tables, rows and label and columns were flipped as opposed to this one. Okay, but it produces the exact same chart. So here again, you can see that in the among the 18 to 25-year-olds, 42% disagree that they're good at math, and that's nearly the same as the 26 to 32-year-olds who disagree that they're good at math. But in the age group 18 to 25, 40% or just over 40% strongly agree that they're good at math, and the among the 33 to 39, 57% strongly agree that they're good at math, which is quite a bit more than the only 10% of the 26 to 32-year-olds who agree that they're good at math or strongly agree that they're good at math. So that is how to make a chart in the Mac world and in the PC world.